how you train machines, how they figured out how to train AI, which is reinforcement training, is the exact same way you train humans. And so when you see yourself as the subject that is being trained, then we can make better predictions of, will people buy? Will people take this offer? In the beginning, if you don't have money, the only thing you have is time. And so that is the only thing it's the only currency you can spend to improve yourself or get closer to your goals. And so if that's the one currency you have, then why on earth would you give it away? You are trying to solve tomorrow's problems with today's resources. It's a fallacy. It's ridiculous. You don't have the money, you don't have the skill, you don't have the connections, you don't have the resources, you don't have the experience and the track record. But future you will. But the hard part is future is a stranger. And so I think we make a lot of this content to try and approximate as closely as possible to just pull the first step for someone to take to say, believe, like, you will figure it out. Like, as long as you do not quit, you'll win. Like, you just have to not stop. That's basically it. You just have to not stop. As long as you get feedback and you take the feedback and you improve and you do that a long enough time horizon, you win. I mean, if you want to have a doggy skateboard and you pitch 100 dog owners on the doggy skateboard and then none of them want it and you're like, well, I really believe in this doggy skateboard idea. And then you bring them the doggy skateboard and then they really still don't want it. You probably shouldn't sell doggy skateboards, but you shouldn't quit business. Even if you just reframe failure in that way, it makes it way more palatable. But as long as it doesn't become a global failure of I'm no longer doing this, then you're good. I think what people are trying to get at is an understanding, a more accurate understanding of base reality. Mm-hmm. And the people who are achieving the things that you want to achieve and you have been able to, fundamentally, if you're doing stuff and what you want to have happen is not happening, your model of the world is either incorrect or the variables you have are incorrect. Yes. I'm a big believer in behaviorism, operant conditioning, which is basically how you train machines, how they figured out how to train AI, which is reinforcement training, is the exact same way you train humans.
Okay.
And so when you see yourself as the subject that is being trained, then we can make better predictions of, will people buy? Will people take this offer? Let's say I've got a grandpa and he doesn't want to take his medicine, and the medicine the doctor said was going to extend his life by 10 years. The nurse is at home with me and she's going to try and give grandpa the pill. And he says, it tastes like shit. I don't want to have it. He just brushes her away. She comes back, she throws her hands up and she's like, you lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? Mm-hmm. The operationalist or the behaviorist would say, no, you've made many other options, the more likely option than taking the pill. And so what we need to do is make the pill the nicest and easiest option available to him. And so the first thing you would do is you'd crush the pill up. And then I would say, okay, let's put it in some lemonade. Put it in the fridge, make it ice cold. Mm. All right, I'm going to bring out some peanuts that are salty and I'm going to put it in front of the grandpa. Right. And then I'm going to come out with a chessboard or a backgammon board. And I'm going to sit in front of him and set it all up and say, hey, I know you said you wanted to play backgammon. I've said no the last 3 weeks. Here's the lemonade. Do you want to play? If you finish the lemonade, we can play. How likely is it that grandpa now drinks the lemonade? Mm-hmm. Super high. But at the end of the day, we didn't persuade. We arranged the conditions to maximize the likelihood of the outcome that we wanted. What people miss is that the amount of attack vectors that people who succeed approach a problem with is orders of magnitude greater than someone who is starting out. Is they're like, I talked to 3 people and that was it. And they said they didn't want it. And I tell this story because it was one of those big moments for me, which is I had a mentor. He said, you should put some flyers out. That's how he advertised. He had a big chain, 22 locations. And I was like, all right, I'll put some flyers out. I put 300 out. And then nothing happened. One person called and they said I dinged his car. And then I was like, thank God I didn't have any money. So he called me up, or I called him like a week or 2 later, and he was like, oh, how'd the flyers go? And I was like, I'm going to show you. Yeah, I'm going to show you. Dude, nothing happened, man. And he didn't even, I was waiting for him to try and fight me on it. He was like, well, what was your test size? I was like, I was like, I put out 300 flyers. And he was like, yeah, it's tough to know if anything works at 300. He's like, we usually put out 5,000 per test batch until we know it works. He said, then we do 3,000 a day after that. And so he was doing 150,000 flyers a month, and I'd put out 300. And so as much as people don't think that it's like work harder, it's the volume of activity and output that people who are 100 steps ahead of you really is oftentimes 100 times more. Now it seems unfathomable because you're looking at the top of the hill and it's like, how do I get there? But you start by making one. And then you learn through how painful the inefficiency is. Like when you're editing, you're doing the split test for the headlines, 300 of them at a time. You learn because you're like, this is so painful. It works, but my God, is it painful? That is what motivates you, because you want the payoff, but you don't want the pain, to figure out ways to make it more efficient. And then when it becomes efficient, you did the scarce work that no one else wants to do because no one even knows it works as well as it does. And then all of a sudden you have that, you have a scarce competitive advantage over everyone else. A lot of people who are delusional when they start out think that they are going to change people. And I think one of my favorite I think Gary Halpern said this, he's a copywriter. He said, we don't want to create demand. He said, we want to channel it. It's just such an interesting nuance. He's like, that demand, like the demand needs to be there. We just need to just carve a little bit of that river and point it towards us. And I think when you're thinking about for you with the show, the attention is there. The attention is being spent every second of every day from every human. And so we're not going to create attention. We're going to channel it. And we're going to make our option the nicest, most convenient option compared to alternatives. And then it's really just getting into the very gritty details of who I need to make this for. Then you get into avatars and subsegments and markets, because what makes it attractive to one person might not make it attractive to another. And that is why probably one of the highest leverage decisions that you make with the business is, who do I serve? To start, you just need to get anybody to give you money. You have then met the requisites for being an entrepreneur. You've accepted money from a stranger. Congratulations, you have a business. Most businesses that I encounter, especially in services, because it's 80% of at least in the US, 78% of all businesses are service-based. Typically, it starts with accepting all money from everyone. Because you're like, oh, I do podcast agency stuff too. Oh, you want a startup? Yeah, I could help you too. Like, because they have a pulse and a credit card, and one of those was the requirement for being a customer, right? And so you take what you can get, right? But you quickly realize that it becomes very difficult to scale that. And that's okay, because you had to do what you need to do to survive and get started, and that's fine. But usually between 1 and 3 million, you have to make a decision where you say, hey, in order for me to scale this, now that I have the resources and the experience and the skill, I can say these customers are easier to deal with and pay us more than these customers. And if I didn't have to serve 10 different types of customers and I only had to serve one type of customer, it would make the operations in the back way easier, because I could start templatizing and start systematizing what our delivery is. And on the front end, if we're advertising people, instead of saying we do podcast agency for everyone, we say we help doctors generate patients using podcasts. It's like, oh, all of a sudden, the correct customer knows that this is for them, right? And so now we're attracting the right people. And then those people are the ones that we already figured out through trial and error and feedback are worth the most. And then we have a more scalable product, because we don't have to make 10 things for 10 people. We make one thing for 10 people, right? Cut once, sell twice, right? Sell twice. That's the idea. Not cut once, sell once.
It's rarely the information or the intensity that makes things hard. It's the sticking with it that makes it hard. And so the desire that we have to quit is simply breaking the consistency. And so that's why consistency has always been the hardest thing for most people to achieve. But the intensity of what you have to do to be successful is much lower than most people expect. And so oftentimes they suffer significantly more in a short period of time than is required to be successful over a much longer period of time with a much lower intensity. And so it's just like, if you walk for 5 minutes a day, you're going to get, 50% of the health benefits, probably more than that, I'm sure, of just even exercising. You add 10 years to your life if you walked 5 or 10 minutes a day. And the path of personal development is befriending uncertainty. And so I obviously sit from the entrepreneurial perspective, but almost all decisions that you make in the beginning, you have incomplete data and you have to make decisions anyways. And so it's growing comfortable with taking your best bad guess and being directionally correct rather than searching for a perfect answer, because a perfect answer assumes perfect information, which you can only have after you begin. And so in some ways, making a decision is the perfect answer so that you can get the information
feedback
to then improve the quality of the decision later. And I think that one loop is what a lot of people miss out on, is that they obsess for years sometimes on the perfect pick, the perfect business, the perfect job, the perfect mate, when most of the times beginning each step eliminates the next step, which means the information, the feedback that you get from walking gives you more about where to walk than trying to sit at the beginning in the darkness and pick a direction.
Well, it's
the difference as well, I think, between people who are super advanced, super developed, super far down the line and people who are beginning. It's like, dude, what are you risking by trying to do this thing? For you, it's fine for you to spend 18 months negotiating with Sam on the school deal, but if you are yet to do any business, that's probably not necessarily the right way to go about things. Tim Ferriss says, in the short term, your success depends on your intensity. In the long term, your success depends on your consistency. Do not sacrifice the latter for the former.
What's wild about the fear that people have when they're starting out is that they say things like, I have nothing going for me. I have no advantages. I have nothing to my name. I have no money. I have no network. I have no resources. But using Rory Sutherland's reframing, it also means that you have nothing to lose, which makes you incredibly dangerous. And I think people wildly underestimate how many shots on goal you can take when you have nothing to lose. Whereas when someone has something to lose, they have to be more and more selective about the shots they take. And so you have the perfect conditions for taking risk, because the worst case scenario is baseline, is where you're currently at.
Correct.
Which means that it's like going to the casino and playing craps, but they say that you can just keep playing until you win, but people are afraid to roll. I think the second part I want to start with, which is, if you see that you have an empty calendar, most people assume that if someone asks you for that time, it's therefore theirs. And it's only not theirs when someone else has claimed it, which means that your time only belongs to other people. And then you're surprised by the fact that your investment of time has yielded nothing for you when you've given the only and most valuable asset that you have to everyone else, who often give a very poor return on it for you. And so in the beginning, if you don't have money, the only thing you have is time. And so that is the only thing it's the only currency you can spend to improve yourself or get closer to your goals. And so if that's the one currency you have, then why on earth would you give it away? It's also the easiest way to know where someone's going to be in 5 years or even a year. You just see where they're investing their time, and you can predict, like, more accurately what their life is going to look like in a year based on what they're doing today. And it's a good thing, for us, it's hard for me not to put the business stuff into it, but a reminder that the life that I'm living today is a result of the work that I did 6 and 12 months ago. And so if you were to look at my calendar 6 and 12 months ago, then you might extrapolate out to what I'm doing today. But just like people want the immediate reward, they also see their current condition as a result of the behavior they're doing today. It's not at all. And so that's why I think having, in some ways, a very vivid imagination of, like, this is where I think the benefit of, quote, visualization comes into play. I don't see it as much as a benefit for, like, oh, I have to imagine this thing to happen. But I think it's more powerful to think, I'm doing this thing today and I'm imagining it happening. So it's an approximation of the feedback loop that you want to have. And so it helps you substitute and get through the period where nothing's actually happening. One of my closest friends, or my closest friend, Dr. Kashi, and I talk about this. But the difference between experts and beginners is that experts have more ways to reward themselves in a given condition. And so if you think about an expert salesman, there are so many interactions they can have that they are good at, that they can find rewarding and positively reinforcing. And so the goal is to develop enough skill that your external environment and conditions can deliver enough positive feedback that it can become self-sustaining. So if you're an editor and you edit videos for a living, in the beginning, you have to, you watch a video and then you try the thing. And if it doesn't work, there is a feedback loop, it's null. And then you go back, you try it again, and then you do get a positive feedback. Oh, I made that transition happen. Or I made that color grading occur, whatever. I'm talking you get the idea. There are some roles like sales and editing where there's a lot of people who are music, where people become passionate because there's enough fast feedback loops in the beginning where they can try something and then get good. A master musician can pick up any instrument and have positive feedback loops everywhere. And so the more you master any skill, the more ways you can win. And so and that's ultimately what makes the rich get richer is that because everything is so positively reinforcing, because they start to develop skills, then they do more and more of it. And as they do more of it, the rich get richer, the better get better, the better become best. And then everyone who's starting out is like, how on God's earth does this guy have this work ethic? But it's really that he has high levels of skill. And all right, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but I think it's going to be worth it. So I think about everything in terms of skills. And I have more or less divorced myself from the words like feelings, psychology, intuition, whatever. I've just taken it out of my vocabulary and character traits and tried to focus ruthlessly on what are the actions that I can take to become patient. And if you say, hey, be patient, what does someone do, right? They have to figure out what to do in the meantime. That's the definition of patience. If you say, hey, be more charismatic, the problem with that directive is that it's a bundled term. And so I say charismatic, but what it really means is 12 skills underneath of it. That means that when you walk into a room, stand up straight. When you walk into a room, look everyone in the eyes. When you walk into a room, announce yourself, speak louder, shake people's hands and look at them while they're talking. When someone talks, nod your head. If you do all of these 12 behaviors or 15 behaviors, people will begin to describe you as charismatic. And in the path of personal development, we want to become more of these things, but we haven't chunked down the bundled term into the series of behaviors that create the description that people will then call us later. And I think by breaking things down, then it's not like, oh, I'm just not that insert character trait. It's really, oh, I have not mastered these 12 skills.